Which lenses do I use for my A6400? We're going to find out. What's up, beautiful people? TJ here with another episode of What the F Stop. If you like these types of videos, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Also hit that bell icon so you can get notifications whenever I release new videos. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about my line of lenses that I use for my Sony cameras, specifically my A6400, my A6300. Just a little backstory. I was always a Canon person. I had a Canon Rebel T6i. So I bought a bunch of glass for the Canon Rebel series cameras, and I actually switched over to Sony recently because I like the 4K, I like the low light performance, different things like that. So I want to talk about some of the lenses that I use and some of the Canon lenses that I still use. So all the lenses that I talk about in this video is of course going to be in the description section below. I'll have the Sony variants as well as the Canon variants, just in case if you are thinking of switching from Canon to Sony and you already have a lot of Canon glass, you can do so, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so the first lens we're going to talk about is the Sony 16mm. I actually have it attached right now to my Sony A6300, but it is a very small lens. I like the small frame of it, the small form factor. But I use this lens because it is a wide angle lens, so you can get a lot of screen real estate with it. The only problem with this lens is if you are going to use it for any kind of gimbal work, or if you have like a DJI Ronin S, you will not be able to use this camera lens combo to kind of get a balance of it. The motor's a little bit too strong, and this is a very light camera, which is a good thing because it's light and you can use it. You know, you can hold it out about this far if you want to and get a really good image. This does have a minimum focal distance of 0.8 feet, so you can get really, really close to your face and then have a really wide field of view with this lens. So I'm going to show you some examples of that right now, but I use this lens mainly when I'm outside and I want to get a lot of stuff like in focus. You're not going to really have any kind of shallow depth of field or blurry background, kind of like how you have with this lens I'm shooting on right now, but you will have a wide angle view. This does not have optical steady shot, so if you are attaching it to a Sony A6400, your footage may be a little bit shaky, so just make sure you are accounting for that. Now, since you do have a wider angle view, you can do some stabilization in post and it won't really hinder a lot of your video. The next lens I want to talk about is the Sony 35mm f-stop 1.8. This is actually the lens I'm shooting on right now. So I'm sitting about 5 foot away from the camera or so. Actually, let me see. Longer than my arm length because I'm not touching the lens right now. So I'm about 5 foot away from the camera, and this is the field of view that you get. This is the bokeh or shallow depth of field that you can get. Right now it is at f-stop 2.2, so it's not even wide open. If it was all the way wide open, of course it would have a blurry background. If I get closer to the camera, it's going to have a blurrier background. So actually, the closer I get to the camera, as you can see, you do have those really nice bokeh rings back there, and that's really cool. That's actually a cool like thumbnail right there. And like I said, if you get a little further out, and it does zoom in and out fairly well. I mean, it's really quick, really snappy. Of course, that's credited to the Sony A6400, which has that really cool autofocus. So I mean, it's focusing on my face. You can't see it, but I can see like the box around my face. So that's a really cool feature with this camera. So that's one of the big differences between having a Sony camera or Sony lens with a Sony camera and having a Canon lens with the Sony camera, because the autofocus sometimes is a little wonky between the two if you have an adapter on it, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So the next one I want to talk about is the Sony 50mm f-stop 1.8. So I bought this lens because I have the nifty 50 for the Canon lens, and I really like the shallow depth of field, and I really like the bokeh that you can get with this 50mm lens. Now, this lens is not cheap, I will say that, but it was important for me to be able to have this lens so I can do product shots. So I do, whenever I do video reviews or I do product reviews, a lot of times I like to get really you know, cropped in photos or videos of the products, and this lens achieves that very easily. And so the ease of use with this lens is really cool. Now, if I were to video with this lens, I'm gonna get a really crispy image. It's gonna look really good. The colors are gonna look really good. It's gonna be extremely sharp. However, I'm gonna have to be, like right now I'm 5 foot away from my camera to get this shot. So to get this shot with this lens, I would actually have to add about 2, maybe even 3 feet to get that shot. So now we're talking about 7 or 8 feet away from the camera just to get a shot in this frame. Now that's not always a deal breaker for me, but if you don't have like the audio, if you don't have like audio equipment to kind of get that distance, then you know you will have some distorted audio, or if you have to have a wireless microphone or something like that, just to have that this field of view with this lens is going to be really hard because of the length. Now, this does give you some really creamy bokeh. I really like using this for product shots, shots of my fish, shots of different things outside. This is really good for photography as well as videography. If you're not looking to, you can't vlog with this camera, I'm gonna tell you that right now. I mean, you're gonna have to have a really long extension to get a field of view where you can actually see your face and see stuff. Now, I have vlogged with the 50mm and it looked really good, but it's just really cropped in, and it's a little more cropped in than what I'm comfortable with putting out. So that is the Sony FE 50mm f-stop 1.8, really good lens. The next lens I want to talk about is the kit lens. So this is the kit lens that comes with the Sony A6400. It is a power zoom, so it has like a little zoom knob right here, so it'll zoom in and out actually with the camera itself. But the problem with this lens is that it has an f-stop of 3.5 through 5.6, which is really not, I mean, pretty much everything's going to be in focus at that focal range, as well as the low light performance. So like right now I'm shooting in my studio. However, the studio is not really lit very well right now because I have this ring light and I have like just some color lights in the background. So if I was shooting this same video with this lens, it would not look all that good. You would see like a lot of artifacting. The blacks would look weird. And that's why I don't really use this lens on any kind of professional like shooting kind of things. But if you're going out, you know, to a theme park, or if you are going to a sporting event, or if you want to just grab your camera real quick and put this on, you don't know if you need to zoom in and out, this is a really good lens to throw in your bag and use for those kind of situations. But you can also use this lens because it's a pretty wide angle lens. You can use it if you're doing like any kind of vlogs. It does have steady shots, so it's going to have that smoothing effect when you're walking and different things like that. So that's something to really look at if you are doing vlog style videos. Now, let's get into the Sigma lenses because I am a Sigma guy. So we're going to talk about 2 other things. So I had to switch from my Canon lens to my Sony lenses in a pretty short period of time because I want to switch over from 1080p to 4K. So whenever I did that, I had just purchased this lens right here, and it was 800 bucks. And I didn't really want to purchase another one with the Sony mount. So I went and found this MC11 Sigma converter. This actually converts your Canon mount lenses to a Sony mount. So you can use all of your Canon glass for your Sony. Now, this little extra distance right here is going to add a little bit of distance between the camera body and the lens body. So it's not going to be a true 18 to 35 millimeter. It's going to be a little bit further out. So that leads me into the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter art lens, f-stop 1.8 all the way through. You can get f-stop. It's like having a bag full of prime lenses all in this lens. Now, on the front of this, I have a variable ND filter. You probably can't see that, but it opens and closes, so I can get that f-stop 1.8 at all times. So I use this lens a lot. Actually, about 80% of my videos are shot with this lens. I'm trying to change out and use some different lenses now, but this is like my go-to lens because I know that I will be able to get the shot that I need with this lens. It is super expensive. It is really heavy. but it's worth it, you know. So this is a very well built lens. I have a whole video on this lens. I'm gonna put it up here in the description section below. But if you can use this for vlogging, it's really heavy, so I wouldn't recommend using it for vlogging, but you can use it for vlogging because you can get, I think the minimum focal distance for this is about a foot. So you can get, you know, within range of yourself if you want to do a vlog. However, like I said, it is very heavy, so you may not want to use it for that. Now, you can get an ND filter, a variable ND filter to change the amount of light that comes in, so you can get that full f-stop 1.8 in all the different focal lengths. It does have autofocus and manual focus. So what I have noticed, because I don't have the USB dock for this lens, is that when I do mount it with the MC11 adapter to my Sony A6400, sometimes the autofocus is it's slow. It doesn't really work as snappy as the Sony lenses. However, I still use it because I love it. This works really well with a gimbal. So like if I have my DJI Ronin S and I want to use this lens with that camera, it balances really well, especially because the weight of this is, I mean, this is about 3 or 4 pounds just for this lens itself. So it does balance really well with it. It's just an all around really awesome lens. So I want you to check that video out that I made on this lens especially. All right, the last lens I'm going to talk about is the Canon, well, not the last one, but close, next to the last one. I'm gonna talk about is the Canon 75 to 300 millimeter. So this is a Canon lens. I don't have a Sony variant for this, so when I use this lens, I do have to either use my Canon camera and I can only shoot in 1080p, or I connect this to the MC11 adapter and I can use it to get some shots. All right, so this does zoom in and out, so it'll go from 75 millimeter to a 100 or 300 millimeters. So it zooms very far. I actually use this to photograph like the moon and planets and different things like that. You can actually get that far with this lens. So you can use this for like sporting events, or if you're out in the wilderness and you want to do landscape photography or different things like that, you can get those shots with this lens. Now, I will say this lens is not as heavy as it looks. It's a long lens, but it's not really all that heavy. Also, if you're using it with the MC11 adapter, it is going to add some length to it. So it's not going to be a true 75 to 300 millimeter lens. So the last lens that I want to talk about is something that I just got. So whenever I'm doing my product reviews, I like getting really close into the product sometimes, and I don't have a macro lens. So I was looking at macro lenses, and you know, they was $400 or $500 for macro lenses. So I said, how else can I get those really zoomed in product shot with the glass that I already have? So I bought these Meike. I'll leave a link to them in the section below. It's M-E-I-K-E. And these are extension tubes. So essentially all this is it's 2 little tubes, and there's a 10 millimeter and a 16 millimeter. You can actually put these on your camera. You can detach them and you can use just the 16 or the 10, or you can use them both together. So when I put these two on my camera, I can get really close to an image, and it will have the shallow depth of field on the front and on the back. So you can get really close in on a product or a spot on a product. You know, if you was trying to get a label, or if you was trying to get, you know, the nameplate on a piece of equipment, you can actually get in really close to that and have that sharply in focus, and everything else to be out of focus. So I'm gonna show you some differences between the two images. I'm actually gonna make a whole video about these because these are really cool, especially if you want to do some macro photography with the equipment that you already have. I'm gonna show you how to do that. So those are all of the lenses that I use. I do plan on getting some different lenses and add to my collection. I'm also thinking about getting a new camera, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. I don't know if I'm going to get it or not, but I am looking at getting it. And if you want to see that and you want to see those types of videos, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everything, guys. See you.